Friend, we are tackling these 2 tables of tomatoes today. This is not even all the tomatoes that I have in my house. I have a ton in the freezer and I have a ton in the garden. I was going back and forth. Should I throw all these in the freezer and deal with them this winter, or should I tackle them today? To be honest, I wasn't sure where I was gonna go today, but I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna tackle it today. So I've got some comfy clothes on, I've got comfy slippies on. We are gonna be in the kitchen for quite a while. So the first thing I need to do is get all of these cooking down. We're gonna make 2 tomato products today. We're gonna make roasted pizza sauce with some of these cherry tomatoes. For the freezer, I'm gonna do it a little bit different. I normally can my pizza sauce, but I thought, well, I'm going back and forth what I'm gonna do. So just come along the journey as we process all these tomatoes, and we're going to tie up some loose ends of some other projects we had started down the road, and we'll get those taken care of. But the first thing I want to do is get my tomatoes processing. I need to get all these tomatoes washed, so we're going to get them washed first.
The inspiration for this recipe was Living Traditions. They made this recipe out of Crystal from the Whole Fed Homesteads cookbook. She's got a freezer cookbook, and it looked delicious. The reason I was a little hesitant was because I love the convenience of canned pizza sauce. I don't have to think about pulling it out of the freezer and thawing it. So I was a little hesitant, but I am so glad I decided to make this recipe because it is phenomenal. I will probably make this every year because the flavor is just so good. What I need to try to do is find a recipe where I can make this freezer safe, because I do love the convenience, but it hasn't been a big deal. Josh and I have actually already eaten 2 of the containers of this pizza sauce, and it hasn't been a big deal. It thaws relatively quickly in about 2 hours if you set it at room temperature. And if you think about it, you know, you can take it out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator overnight and it should be thawed. But I will link Crystal's cookbook down below, and I will also link Living Traditions video where she made this recipe down below if you are interested.
I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees, and we're gonna get these roasting in the oven. And of course, I've got some cast iron I need to move around. So what we need to do now is deal with the rest of these tomatoes. All of these tomatoes need to be washed as well. I'm just gonna remove the stems, put them in this bowl, get them washed up, and then get them cooking down. We have been able to eat our weight in fresh tomatoes. This has been my absolute best tomato year I have ever had, and I'm just blown away. I need to go out to the garden and harvest a bunch more tomatoes. But the first thing I'm gonna do is just clear this table because it's kind of sitting here and feeling not like a weight, but it definitely feels like it's something that needs to be taken care of. And I had the option of either just taking the stems off and throwing them in the freezer or dealing with them today. And you know, I had the time today, so I thought, let's just go ahead and get a good big batch of tomato sauce roasting. I think I'm gonna wash this tablecloth today too. Try to get this table completely empty, washed, and then we'll start over with more tomatoes. I've got my 30-quart stock pot here. I'm gonna get this on, and this is where we're gonna start cooking our tomatoes. I haven't decided if I'm gonna pressure can this tomato sauce yet this year or today, or if I am going to water bath can it. You and I will figure that out as the day goes on. Oh, got a couple stems in here. I'm going to take my meat chopper. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is.
I grabbed my meat chopper and I'm thinking that what I want to do is start breaking some of these tomatoes so that it releases the juices so it can cook down a little bit easier and I don't get scorching on the bottom. And then I realized I didn't cut the cores out of those tomatoes, so I do end up going back and fishing out the tomatoes and removing the cores. I got a little ahead of myself there and started chopping them. So don't worry, we go back and we remove the cores. So this is the first year where I am not purchasing any tomatoes from a local farm. I am able to produce all the tomato products we need for one entire year off of the garden that we built this year, which is pretty incredible. So this is me now going back and removing the cores out of these tomatoes. We are going to run these tomatoes through a food mill. So it is going to remove the skins and the seeds. So when you're canning tomato sauce, you want to remove the skins and the seeds, and there's a couple ways you can do that. You can either blanch your tomatoes, which is what we did when we did the diced tomatoes. You just put the tomatoes in some boiling water and then you shock them in cold water, and you can remove the skins. But I have so many tomatoes to do, and so this is how I've always preferred to do it, is to get them cooking down and then run them through a food mill. I don't know which way is less work. Canning tomatoes is a labor of love. Tomato products is a lot of work. I think it's worth it. It was one of the first things I started canning. I love having my own tomato products on my pantry shelf. This year I have expanded my tomato products on my pantry shelf with diced tomatoes and tomato paste. We're going to get to the tomato paste a little bit later. And it's just a really awesome, cool thing to be able to grow or source locally tomatoes. It's really easy to find tomatoes from local farmers. And so if you want to do this yourself and you don't have a garden, no worries. It's a great time right now to find some local farmers in your area that grow tomatoes. I can link a resource down below to help you find some local farmers in your area. But you can also Google it and look on Facebook Marketplace to see if you can find a local tomato farmer.
This is the last of the tomatoes that are in the house right now that aren't the ones including the ones in the freezer. And we were able to get this whole stock pot filled. So that feels good. I'm glad I was able to get all of it in here. I've been going back and forth whether I'm going to take the ones out of the freezer and deal with those ones too. I think I'm going to, because I'm in tomato processing mode. I might as well get those out of the freezer as well. So I'm going to put the lid on this and set this here. And I grabbed my roaster out. That's a great way if you don't have a big pot like this, but you happen to have a roaster, to cook down tomatoes. You can see we cleared that table, which feels great. And don't worry, we still have plenty of tomatoes out in the garden to eat fresh. I'm still gonna have a bunch more to preserve. So just because I processed all those tomatoes does not mean we're not gonna be eating fresh tomatoes for dinner tonight. Okay, now my mom taught me this. I didn't know this. I've been using these roaster pans to can tomatoes and processed tomatoes for years. And my mom showed me this. You're supposed to put a little bit of water in the bottom of it, and it helps with even cooking, so it doesn't scorch as easily on the bottom. And then you put the liner in. Let's make sure that it's not gonna, yeah. So that's a good amount. I'm gonna go ahead and get this turned on just so it's warming up. You do have to be careful when you use these because they warm up very quickly. I'm gonna set this aside. We're gonna go run out into the freezer and grab the tomatoes that are out in the freezer. I'm gonna grab a basket. I'm just going to dump these into my basket. I have already washed these tomatoes, the ones that went into the freezer, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm gonna save these Ziploc bags so that as tomatoes need to go into the freezer, I can put them in these Ziploc bags. Well, that tomato's gonna need to be re-washed, but these ones are good. Get these these in the roaster. You can see that before I threw them in the freezer, I did core them. Most of them. There's a few in here that aren't, but I tried to do as many before I put them in. I do have three more Ziploc bags, and I think I'm going to be able to get them all in either between this roaster and that one, but they just need to cook down a little bit more. These are the tomatoes that are already peeled and skinned. Let's see. When I get these tomatoes starting, when I cook them from frozen in a roaster pan, I normally add some water, but I've got tomato juice that's already starting to cook down over there. And instead of adding water to this to then remove the water, I'm just gonna grab some tomato juice from over there and put it in here, and that's just gonna help there be some moisture on the bottom of this as this gets cooking. So let me show you what I just did over there. I'm just taking this jar, filling it with some juice, and we'll go get this in the roaster pan. I'm not gonna put the lid on because I don't mind if there's some evaporation happening, but I'm really excited with the progress we've already made today. Huge. Now, let's get some things out of the freeze dryer and get those packaged up. That will be something I can completely check off the list, which will feel good. And then we've got another project we've got to finish up today. So today has been a good day so far, and I'm glad you're here with me because I was feeling a little overwhelmed about 20 minutes ago, and now I'm excited. I'm enjoying myself. I love this kind of stuff, but it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes because it's a big responsibility to take care of all this stuff. And I've also been able to gift a bunch of my produce away this year. It's been more than we can enjoy, and so I've been able to really share the abundance this year, which is a bonus. I did not know that that was going to be a thing I was going to be able to do. So let's go out into the freeze dryer room. My freeze dryer has been running all weekend long. I was able to empty it out this weekend with the freeze dried zucchini. I think that's the second or third time I've done freeze dried zucchini this year. And I was able to get it loaded up with our freeze dried, oh yeah, it's done. Can you hear that? Cucumbers and our freeze dried dill. I love freeze dried herbs. The flavor is just as good as fresh. And one of my favorite things to use dill in is actually potato salad. My dad's coming over tomorrow and we are going to be harvesting the potatoes. And I wanted to make sure I got some freeze dried dill on my pantry shelf so we can enjoy it all winter long. I didn't unfortunately grow this dill. My dill did hardly anything, but I was able to get this at a local farm for a really great price. Now, another thing I love to freeze dry, which is right here, is cucumbers. Sometimes it can be hard to think of ways to preserve cucumbers in any other way other than pickling. And I like a pickle just as much as the next person, but Josh doesn't like pickles and we don't go through a ton of pickles. I'm actually gonna be making some pickles, some refrigerator pickles with some of this dill. But a great way to freeze dry it is shredded, or a great way to preserve it is shredded, and then I could rehydrate it and use it in tzatziki sauce. It's incredible. Josh and I love tzatziki sauce, and so this has been a really good way to preserve cucumbers in kind of a non-conventional way. And a bunch of you guys had told me that I could upgrade my freeze dryer. I've got a medium-sized Harvest Right freeze dryer. If you're interested in learning more about freeze dryers, I can link mine down below. That you can upgrade the insert from a 4 shelf for the medium size to a 5 shelf. And I am upgrading it. I have that coming, and I'm really excited about that. So when that comes and we upgrade it, I will share with you how that process goes. I'm gonna get this in here. And look at this, another project done. I'm not going to use Mylar with these. I'm just going to put them in the jars, put a lid on it, and because I'm going to go through this within a year. So if I wanted to store this for long-term storage, I would put it in a Mylar bag, but in a jar is going to be just good for me right now. Friend, we are just checking things off the list. The next thing we're going to work on, this is only going to take a minute or two, is to finish the tomato paste. We made this together the other day, and I wanted the tomato paste to cool before I put it into these little pots that we're gonna make it. So typically, when a recipe calls for tomato paste, it only calls for, a tablespoon or 2 at a time. So I wanted this tomato paste to cool so that I could use a 1 tablespoon scoop, put it onto a cookie sheet, and then when I need a recipe, I know how much I need to pull out from the freezer at a time, and we have homemade tomato paste. This is the first year I've done it, and I have to say it was a lot easier than I expected it to be. And it's nice and firm. I can pick up one of these whole discs just like that. That scoop wasn't totally full, so I want to make sure that the scoops are totally full so I know how much when I grab one of these out of the freezer.
I've been able to grow or locally source all my tomato products except for tomato paste for the last 6 years or so. I always thought tomato paste would be super hard and challenging to do, so I never attempted it. Well, I'm going to bring you back to a couple days ago in case you missed it, and I'm going to show you how I did this. It was much easier than I thought. I took only Roma tomatoes and I threw them in my highest powered blender I have, which is my Vitamix, and I blended them until they were very, very smooth. I started them out on the stove, and I had them boil on the stove for a few hours because I was in the kitchen and I could keep a close eye on it. And then I threw them in the oven at about 400 for about 2 hours or so, and I stirred pretty regularly. And then I turned the oven down to about 200, and they were in the oven for many hours, stirring about every 15-20 minutes or so. And then boom, we've got our tomato paste. I had this roaster pan filled to the tippity top, and you can see how far it cooked down. Once it was to the consistency I wanted, it held its shape. It was still hot. I put it into a bowl and then I let it get cool, and then we're going to come back today and I'm going to shape them up. Once they're frozen in their little discs, I'll throw them in a bag and I can use them in pre-portioned whenever I need to.
I want to make sure that periodically I'm coming over here and making sure nothing's scorching on the bottom of this roaster pan.
I filled that roaster pan probably a little bit too much with water, so if you do that, just be careful not to overfill it with water. And if you are new to using roaster pans for processing tomatoes, be very, very, very careful because the outside rim gets extremely hot, and I can't tell you how many times I have burnt my forearms from touching it. So just know that if you're going to use a roaster pan when doing canning projects. Now, I have an abundance of tomatoes this year, and so I had enough tomatoes to dedicate towards this project. If I didn't have an abundance of tomatoes, I might not have done this, but I had an abundance and I'm glad I did. I will use these for the next year, and I'm going to stick these in the freezer. And like I said, once they get frozen, I'll just put them in a bag and be able to pull them out whenever I need. Now, throughout, this process on this day, I'm making sure I stir both the roaster pan and the pot on the stove. This is the last of the tomato paste. It made so much tomato paste. I'm kind of surprised, I definitely am having a bumper crop of tomatoes this year, and it's been a huge blessing. I've been able to gift the gift of tomatoes and zucchinis this year because we have grown more than what I need for an entire year, and so it's been fun to be able to kind of gift the gift of zucchini and tomatoes. Now, this is not zucchini or tomatoes. These are ginger pucks. So I took ginger, I peeled it, I washed it, and then I put them in these little pucks. And I'm going to get these in the freezer, and we will be able to enjoy fresh ginger whenever we want. So now we've been able to button up a few projects. We are going to get back to the main projects at hand.
Talk about some progress. I'm feeling good about the day. We almost are ready to make up our pizza sauce, and we need to go outside and harvest some things before we can finish the pizza sauce. But I need to grab a couple jars because I am going to show you how I like to can my just regular sauce so that I can get 2 products for the price of 1. If you have watched me can tomato products like just tomato sauce, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I need some quart jars to do this. 2, 4, 6, I think I need 7. 7 jars will fit in 1 pressure canner load. So I'm gonna pressure can this next thing. But let's take a look at our pizza sauce and see if it's ready. I'm gonna give it another few minutes. So while we're waiting for that, let's go run out into the garden and grab some basil so we can make our pizza sauce. I don't know about you, but I now have inside slippers and garden slippers. So I'm gonna switch to my garden slippers. That's for the chickens. And we're gonna head outside. Today it rained for the first time in like 2 months. It's not even probably 75 out here. It's glorious. Feels so good. It's just kind of funny because my dad and I are planning to harvest potatoes tomorrow, and you want it to be dry when you harvest potatoes, and it rained. And I think I'm gonna harvest my black beans tomorrow too. And so I'm hoping it's not supposed to rain tonight, but we'll see. I still have so many tomatoes. We are gonna have more tomato products and projects, but we're making progress on what we've already harvested. And this is what I'm looking for right here. Oh, there's a bumblebee. This basil plant was hiding underneath this zucchini plant, so it has not bolted yet. This basil plant has bolted, which means it's going to flower. It's creating seed. I'm not going to harvest from this one because it's going to be bitter, but this one is still going to be nice and sweet. The crazy thing is it's cooler out here than it is in my kitchen right now from all the big pots and stuff that I have going. Might have to open a window. I can't help myself. I saw a couple jalapenos that were ready to be harvested and I grabbed those. So we're gonna get those washed up along with all of this basil. I probably harvested more basil than I need. So whatever I don't end up using for the, I'll put in the freezer for freeze drying. You know, we might use all of that. I'm gonna let this just kind of drain here while we grab the pizza sauce out of the oven. I think I'm gonna let them roast for a few more minutes. I'm still waiting for a couple things to fall into place. I'm waiting for my tomatoes to be done roasting in the oven, and I'm waiting for my roaster tomatoes for sauce to cook down before we bottle up the juice. So while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to take care of this. I'm gonna throw this in the wash, and I know that tomorrow when my parents are here and we're gonna be harvesting potatoes, I think I'm gonna ask my mom to harvest tomatoes. So I'll get this in the wash tonight, get it all clean, and then bring it back out here so we can get going on a second round of tomatoes. I'm gonna go shake all of this off outside because it has all the stems. Same with this one. So we'll get these cleaned so that we can reuse them again. Do you see how much liquid is in this roaster pan? This is tomato juice, this liquid. And if I want a really nice thick sauce, it's gonna take a very long time for this to cook, evaporate all this liquid. So what I like to do is take a jar. I'm gonna do this in quart jars. I like to strain off some of the juice and can the juice separate so we can get 2 products for the price of 1. So I have a little sieve on the top and I'm going to just strain this tomato juice through the sieve. What I like to do with this juice is make rice with it. It makes really good Spanish rice. I need to get a little spatula so I can get that stuff to go through there. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and get this pressure canned today. I'm gonna take some of the juice off both the roaster and the pot, and then I want to combine, I think, the 2, maybe? We'll see. I'm gonna do quarts, not pints, because like I said, I like to make rice with this, and I'll put 3 cups of rice in my rice cooker with one of these jars, and that makes a really yummy side for dinner.
I also learned this trick from Living Traditions. She has a video out that I think it came out many years ago, and it's called No More Runny Sauce. I'll link that video as well. And I was inspired by it, and I will always do my tomato sauce this way because it saves a ton of time and you get 2 products for the price of 1. I'm not just evaporating all the juice. I can the juice, we can cook with the juice, and we can have a nice thick sauce as well.
Our roasted sauce is ready to come out of the oven now. I'm gonna turn the oven off. You can see how nice and roasted everything is. I'm gonna go through and remove very carefully the skins so we have a better texture sauce. I'm not gonna get every single skin, but just the majority of them. Some of them are slipping off really easily. If you let this cool a little bit, the skins do peel off a lot easier. I've got a few more I need to peel, but I want some of my garlic pucks to thaw a little bit. So I'm just gonna stick some garlic in here and let that thaw in that warm liquid. And then I'm gonna continue to keep peeling off these skins. I wanna get some of the juice strained off this big pot too. And I thought, let's go ahead and get that straining while we work on finishing up that pizza sauce. I got all the peels off the tomatoes. And I'm just gonna let this sit here while we finish up our pizza sauce. Give this a stir to make sure it's not scorching on the bottom, and it's not. I got probably about 90% of the skins off. And we're going to put this in the blender along with our garlic that is now thawed. Oh my goodness, it smells so good in here. So good. I'm gonna mix all of the ingredients into a bowl before we get it put into our containers, just to make sure this flavor is the same all throughout. Put a little bit of red pepper and a little bit more oil.
I'm going to mix these 2 together so that we have an even flavor throughout the whole pizza sauce recipe. and then we will give it a taste test and see what we think.
I could eat that with a spoon. That is by far the best pizza sauce I have ever made. It's so thick and beautiful. The flavor is outstanding. I'm gonna get another spoonful. That is so good. This, oh, that's not a spoon. This is, I mean, this could be soup, a thick soup, I guess, because it's pretty thick, but I don't know if it's because of the cherry tomatoes, all the basil. It does need a little bit more salt, but that is phenomenal. I cannot wait to, I think I'm gonna leave one container out and we're probably gonna have pizza for dinner tonight because this is so good. Perfect amount of heat. It definitely needs some more salt. This is a big bowl of pizza sauce, so I wanna make sure it tastes good just on its own before we get it ready for the freezer. This is so good. It's got a beautiful color too because we use so many of those yellow cherry tomatoes. Let's make sure it's perfect. There is some heat to it, but that is phenomenal. Oh my gosh. So good. I'm gonna put this away. Now I wonder if I could can this if I added lemon juice to it because we took the peels off. Let me look at my canning book because we didn't add anything other than garlic, and let's see.
At this point, I'm trying to think, should I can this recipe or should I freeze it? My original plan was to freeze it, and then I was thinking there's something really nice about having it canned on the pantry shelf, but I already have some canned. And so I'm looking at the pizza recipe in here, and I did not follow the directions according to the canning recipe, and I didn't really want to mess up the flavor with lemon juice because I really, really like the flavor of it. So I'm just going to go with it, and we will try something different maybe next time, but I am super happy with the flavor.
I'm just gonna freeze it. These are the same freezer containers I used for the freezer salsa. So I'm gonna get these out. I don't know how many exactly I'm gonna need. Woo! Oh no! Okay, that's not working. Let's try that again. When I make pizza, I usually open 1 pint of sauce. So this is a pint container, so that's gonna be perfect. I always make 2 pizzas so that Josh and I can eat pizza for lunch. So the rest of it, I'm gonna put into a container and we'll have this for dinner tonight. So I'm gonna put these directly into the freezer. I may have had another bite of that pizza sauce. It is incredible. Now the downside to the pizza sauce in the freezer is that I have to thaw it before I can use it. But I do what I do because I like to eat and I like flavor, and that pizza sauce is better than the pizza sauce I canned. So what I need to do is find a recipe where I could roast it like that and can it so I can have that flavor with the convenience of canned. I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. But for now, I am loving that freezer stuff, and I do what I do, like I said, because I like to eat and I like to eat good food. So it's gonna be nice to have the convenience of the canned stuff on the pantry shelf, plus the deliciousness of that one. Now I need to heat all of this tomato juice up together. I wanna get it all combined. So I just rinsed out this container. I'm gonna pour all the juice into here. I'm gonna get some more juice from this container into here. And then turn the stove on.
The roaster pan tomatoes were frozen, and so the juice in the roaster pan was pretty cold, or kind of room temperature. And obviously you can see the pot on the stove is steaming. It was really hot. So I wanted the juice to kind of mingle together. I wanted it to be the same consistency and flavor, but I also wanted to warm it up. So that's why I'm putting it all into one thing, and then we will go ahead and warm it up and then get these into the jars.
For canning the tomato juice, I needed to heat that juice up. So now I need to heat my canner up because I'm following the directions from my pressure canning manual. So it said to heat my juice up hot. There wasn't a cold pack method, so that's why I did that. Now I'm going to heat my water up because when I put this hot juice in my jars are going to be hot. So I need my water hot. I need them about the same temperature or I could break my jars. I set up a little assembly line here, and for this, I am supposed to add 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice or citric acid, even though it's pressure canned, so I'm following the directions. Now I'm gonna add salt, which is optional, but I'm gonna go ahead and add it. I'm gonna strain the juice one more time, just in case we got any seeds or anything. My jars are very hot. My water is very hot. You can water bath can or pressure can tomatoes. I'm gonna pressure can it just because I'm here and it's easy. So I'm gonna do that. It doesn't have to can for as long if I pressure can it. If I can get the lid on. Okay, so now we can process these tomatoes. While I was waiting for different things to happen, I went ahead and I got set up over there my new electric tomato strainer, peeler, de-seeder. You can use this for tomatoes or applesauce. I have a hand crank one that I have to attach to the side of my island, and it's actually starting to break my island. This wood piece is starting to come off. And so I finally decided, with how many tomatoes I process every year and the applesauce I'm gonna be processing and the food preservation that I do, it was time to invest in this serious tomato strainer. So I put a table here with a towel on, and I'm just gonna slide my bowl. It fits perfect, that's a big bowl. And we're gonna start processing these tomatoes. I have been saving and waiting to purchase this tomato strainer for a long time, and I'm grateful I have it today. So I'm gonna turn this on.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this started. Now, one thing to note with this electric mill is that it does make quite a bit of noise. So I'm just going to talk you through my thought process of why and what I'm doing here. So it takes me a few seconds to realize, oops, I forgot to put a plate down to catch the seeds and the skins. So I tried a bowl first, it didn't work. So then I grabbed a plate and that worked perfect. Now, tomatoes, if you are brand new to canning, tomatoes is a lot of work to can. It just is a lot of work. If you're going to do it the recommended way, which is to remove the skins. Now, and there's 2 ways you can do that. You can either do it this way by using a mill, or you can blanch the tomatoes first and then peel them by hand. Now, I did that the first year. I peeled my tomatoes by hand the first year, and it's a lot of work. So then the second year I had watched people who just blended their tomatoes with a hand blender, and they skipped that step entirely. They just left the skins and the peels in their tomato products. Well, we didn't mind it so much. Well, it really depended on what product it was, whether we minded it. I did not like leaving the skins and the peels in ketchup, and there were some other things I didn't like the skins and the peels in, but some things we didn't mind. If it was just crushed tomatoes and we were putting it in chili or something like that, you couldn't even tell. But the longer I've been canning and the more effort I put into, trying to grow my food, the more I want it to be the highest quality product possible. And to get the highest quality product in the jar possible, it's best to remove, and it is what is recommended, is to remove the skins and the peels. And so that's the way I do it now. And it worked. The hand cranked one worked for a long time. I still have it. I will probably pull it out when I do smaller projects. But I am glad that I invested in this one because I can use it with applesauce. And I've always peeled my apples before I make applesauce. And I'm going to try using this instead. My 30-quart bowl is full, and I want this sauce to be a little bit thicker, so I need to transfer a bunch of it back to the stock pot. I went ahead and rinsed my stock pot out to make sure there were no seeds and skins in here, and now I need to get some of this sauce in here back on the stove. It's close to the consistency I want, but not quite there. I probably should have taken maybe 2 or 3 more quarts of juice off. But we can just get this back on the stove. Well, you know, it's pretty close. It's almost there. I do have a few more tomatoes I need to strain through, and I think I might run these through the mill one more time. But I want to run it into a different bowl in case I don't like the consistency. I don't want to put it into my nice sauce. I think that's probably as heavy as I want to go. This stuff's very hot. I don't want to spill it, and so I don't want it to be too heavy and dangerous or anything like that. So we're going to call that good. I'm going to bring this to the stove. So I'm going to get this roaster back on to reduce a little bit too. And we're going to run through the pulp one more time and see what we think of the consistency. This might be a total fail. That's why I don't want to put it into my nice sauce. I'm just going to see what consistency we get. So there you could hear kind of how loud it is. It's not crazy loud, but there's definitely a noise to it. So what I was saying about the applesauce is normally I would peel my apples before I turn them into applesauce. Well, with this thing, you're supposed to be able to cook your apples with the peels on and then run them through this. And so I want to try that this year, and that was another reason why I went ahead and I invested in this electric one. So I am very glad that I decided to run these through a second time. Look at all that. It's beautiful.
I'm really glad I decided to run this through a second time because look at all this beautiful sauce we got. I had completely emptied this bowl, and now we've got a ton of beautiful thick sauce. So all this can go to the chickens. Oh, I don't want to get that in my sauce. I'm going to scrape the sides of this down, and I think we can start jarring some stuff up. And I want to clean this before any of the tomato sauce dries so that it doesn't become a super difficult thing to clean. But look how beautiful and thick this sauce is.
Look how beautiful and thick that is. That is some beautiful sauce. So like I was going back to, because this is so much work and so much effort, it's totally worth it to me to do it. But I want to make sure that what's going into my jars is the highest quality product possible. And that is why now I take the time to peel all my tomatoes. And earlier you saw me peel tomatoes with the water bath canning method, or the water method where I boiled the tomatoes and then I shocked them in water. And then here's the other method where you can use a mill. And it just creates a better texture in the final product, and it is what is recommended. Now, originally, I was thinking I was going to pressure can all of my tomatoes products this year, like my sauce and things, but I have my pressure canner going and I have more space on my stove, but I only have one stovetop pressure canner. So I thought, you know what, I am not going to let that side of the stove go idle. I am going to start jarring up some jars, and I'm going to get these water bath canning. I when you're water bath canning, you can use either lemon juice to acidify your product or citric acid. I like the flavor better of lemon juice as opposed to citric acid. I have tried both. Some people prefer citric acid over lemon juice, and there's multiple different reasons why. You might choose one over the other, but the cool thing about being the manager of your kitchen and your food preservation projects is you get to decide, if you want to water bath can your tomatoes or pressure can them, or if you want to use citric acid or lemon juice. Just make sure that you're following the proper canning guidelines. Whenever you're canning, check, a reliable resource, whether it's a canning cookbook you trust or you go to the USDA's website and you follow their guidelines. Just make sure you're following proper canning, because this is not something you can make up as you go. There's definitely a science behind it. And so I hope I'm just encouraging you that you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And so here I am loading this 30-quart pot. I did go ahead and rinse it out, and I thought originally I could only fit 7 quarts in that 30-quart pot because that's all I could fit in my designated water bath canner. You can water bath can in anything that you can get the liquid over the jars by 2 inches. So I'm just going to use this instead of a traditional water bath canner. But in this I can get 8 jars instead of 7, which is kind of nice. So I'm just going to continue to let my sauce cook down as these water bath can.
Our water bath canner is going, so I need to check the time, how long that's supposed to go. It is already 7 o'clock tonight. I've got a while to go. I did not get started till 2. This is not normal how I do it. Normally I start things early, but sometimes you just have to work with the time you got, and I didn't have time earlier today, and I had time now. But probably about 3 or 4 times during this cooking session, I thought, you know what, I need to get some chicken or some meat out of the freezer to thaw so that I can throw it on the grill for dinner. And then that thought came and went, and I never got it out of the freezer. And then I thought, you know what, I should probably get some pizza dough out of the freezer so that we can make some pizza with our pizza sauce. That thought came and went, and I'm not about to make pizza dough right now. I have some leftover bread that I made the other day. I'm going to make some open-faced grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm gonna heat this up. We're gonna dip our open-faced grilled cheese sandwiches in the most delicious pizza sauce that I'm gonna use as kind of like a tomato soup, but it's not really soup. It's just really good. And that's what we're gonna have for dinner tonight. Nothing fancy. It's not always a full meal around here. Oh, I've got cucumbers in the refrigerator. I'm gonna cut up some cucumbers. So we're gonna have cucumbers, open-faced grilled cheese sandwiches, cheers, and our pizza sauce. I had Josh try it, and he said it's probably the best pizza sauce I've ever made, and he really likes the one that I have canned a lot, and this one he thinks is even better, so I'm excited about it. So let's see. Now I'm rambling because I'm... Okay, bring to a boil, and pints for 35 minutes and quarts for 40 minutes. So 40 minutes. Hey Siri, set timer for 40 minutes. And then my juice is done. So as soon as that comes down from pressure, I can empty it, and then I can fill it back up. I'm just letting this cook away and thicken as I'm waiting for the different things to cook. So that's what we got going on around here. So I'll let you know how many total jars we end up getting, but now it's just gonna be rinse and repeat. I will probably be up. This is, how many quarts is this container? This is a 22 quart, and it's not totally full. I can get 8 quarts in my water bath canner, and I can get 7 quarts in my pressure canner. So I will probably be doing this for another probably 3 hours. So it's gonna be a late night for me, so thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I will show you what all of this looks like coming out of the canners. If you are interested in any of the equipment I have used today, I can link it down below for you. I can link down the canning cookbook I'm referencing, and I just want to say thank you for being here. I can pop some of my other videos here, you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I really appreciate the fact that you take time out of your day to spend time with me, and I'm really grateful for you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow because we're going to be digging potatoes. Bye, friends.